on incel violence this week. We've had 10 mass murders, okay, linked to incel violence. Yeah. Why? Because, you know, it creates such a nihilistic mindset. Yeah. That these guys think, well, if I can't compete, I haven't got the body. We had the Plymouth attack earlier this year. A guy who says, well, you know, I can't go to the gym. No woman wants to look at me, etc., etc. There's nothing to do. He kills his mother first.
Mm.
Oh my
And,
God.
you know, he killed Abdurraheem. I had a similar case in our community, and I have quite a few cases where the people have latched onto the manosphere, and that they see that, okay, this is what it means to be a guy, and the first object of their hate becomes their mother, their single mother.
Right.
You fail to keep the man. You fail to keep my dad. Okay, not that they recognize that dad was abusive perhaps in the first place. Yeah. So yes, you know, getting away from the kind of macro issues out there, it comes down to the grassroots of our social capital, of what's happening to our young men at the moment and what's going to happen in the next 10 years. Because if we cannot equalize our men, and it doesn't mean that, look, when we talk about the qawwam of men, that doesn't mean they have to be materialistic, because no, it's about characteristics, nobility, okay, uprightness, knowledge, understanding. That's what it's about. Yeah. And when they have that, then I did a lecture, you know, when when you have the natural qawwam of a man and a woman, she follows him. But when she's earning more than him, she's more intelligent than she's more empowered than him and everything else. And I'm not in any way saying that, you know, we don't want women who are strong and empowered. It's just a different dynamic. And if the man hasn't got tools, and he's set, as Abdurraheem said, in that cultural paradigm, I'm afraid he's only got one tool in the box.
Can I give an example of that, Alyas? And Abdurraheem,
Yeah.
when I was working in Southall, when I was working in the legal profession in Southall, a classic example of what we saw, and Abdurraheem, I think you may have dealt with some dawah in that instance, and you, Alyas, as well, is we were seeing, remember in the 90s when the Somali community, there was an influx of them as refugees coming into the UK. And one of the things we saw in Southall, in the firm that of solicitors I was working for, is that when the women were coming over, they were divorcing their husbands. Okay. And I remember sitting in one of the cases, like, what's going on here? And they said, well, what good are our husbands to us now when we've come to a society where we get benefits, we get housing, our children going to school free? What are our husbands doing? They're not qualified. They can do nothing. We don't need them. The state gives us a lot more. And when we were seeing that on a community scale, okay, we just waited to see what the effects it would have on the Somali youth a generation or two later. And you only have to look now. Remember, Abdurraheem, you saw Streatham, and I'm not saying everyone is Streatham. We're from South London. Alyas, you're from South London. We saw a ghettoization amongst the Somali next generations, and they became as prolific in the gang culture as the black communities, and still are. And that breaking away where a society facilitated women saying, we don't need our men. Our men are insignificant. And Abdurraheem, you mentioned a key thing there. This is another conversation, maybe for another time. The emasculation of men, and societies cause that. There are elements, I think, that some mothers, not deliberately, mothers who may have been in a bad marriage, an abusive marriage, and they want their sons to grow up to be that righteous, balanced man, everything their father wasn't to them, tend to shape or emasculate inadvertently on some occasions, that child into being how they want or perceive that man to be. And they strip from them those elements of manhood that are required, thus causing confusion amongst those men. And I'll stop on this point and hand back to Abdurraheem. And one classic case, which you both might know, and I don't want to give too much details, is a confidential case that Alyas and I dealt with, was of a particular convert to Islam who became extreme, went off to Somalia, joined Al-Shabaab, was very brutal, very violent, and was killed over there. And when the mother was interviewed and the family was interviewed, obviously the shock, the horror, the sadness, but what didn't come out, and I'm not going to go into more details here, but that there was incest taking place in that family from the mother to one, if not two of the sons, okay, that never came out. And the son that went off and did what he did it from the basis of wanting to get out, escape, and really show a toxicity as a man that he then transferred to understanding as being a Muslim.